Hello, my name is Rachel and I'm here today to do my wrap up for the month of October. So October was Victober, which I was taking part in. It's a month-long read-along to do with Victorian literature, and yeah, I was taking part in this. So I have some Victorian books, I have some new books I got for my birthday, some graphic novels and some poetry. So I'm very excited to talk about what I read. I only have 2 of the books with me because most of them are either at home or else from an audiobook or whatever. I will insert them on the screen, but I'm just going to get started. So I talk about the books I've read in reverse order from my lowest rating to the highest. So I'm going to be starting with my 3.5 ratings, which is the lowest I gave this month. So the first one is this picture book called Florette by Anna Walker, which was adorable. I loved this so much. So this is about a little girl who moves to the city and she loves like nature and she has a big garden at home, and then when she moves to the city she doesn't have a garden anymore, and it's all about her trying to look for nature, but obviously because she lives in the city there isn't really that much nature, and she tries to like paint butterflies outside but they get washed away in the rain, and like she tries to make a little garden shelf on her windowsill and things like that, and it's just adorable. It's just a cute little read, so I gave that 3.5 stars and that was quite enjoyable. Then I read a graphic novel called Finding Home. This is by Harry Connor, and I think this was like a Kickstarter comic that ended up getting enough money and becoming a proper graphic novel. I picked it up when I was home in like an indie comic book shop, and I really enjoyed this book. So basically we follow 2 people. One of the guys is away from home and he needs to get home, and the other guy is helping him get home because he is some sort of magical being. The other guy needs protecting to get him home. That's kind of what we understand the story to be. And then as it continues we sort of see a relationship blossom between the 2 of them. And yeah, the things I really enjoyed, a lot of things in this book. There was a lot of representation of different people, of different races, of different body types, of different sexualities, obviously because it's 2 men who are like developing a relationship. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. The art style is really cool. The only thing I would say, and the reason I gave it 3.5, is that it relies on a lot of flashbacks. And there were points where I was like, okay, we've literally like just had a flashback. Can we have some like current time before we get another one? And the other thing is that it's really drawn out, like really drawn out in terms of the romance. There's no intimate moment in the entire graphic novel that I read, so like I want to continue with it, and it makes it clear why. There's no like physical kind of contact. You would expect like at the end of a story you at least get a kiss or something. Nothing. So yeah, I enjoyed this and I want to continue with it, but I did find some things in it a bit dissatisfying. So that's that one. So then let's go on to my 4-star reads. So the first poetry collection that I read was The Republic of Motherhood. This is by Liz Berry. It is an absolutely beautifully published little book of poetry. I filmed my birthday book haul while I was at home, but I haven't edited and put it up yet because I'm lazy. But when I do that, you'll be able to see that it is really pretty. It's got French flaps. It's just really well published, and it's only a £5, so like what excuse have you got not to buy it? It's very lovely, and the poetry in there was really interesting. It's all about becoming a mother and the relationship between yourself and being a mother. That was really interesting. I gave that 4 stars. There were a few poems that stood out, but it was one of those where half of them were memorable and half of them weren't, but the ones that were memorable were really memorable and I really enjoyed. So the 4 stars is really based on those ones and not the collection as a whole, which it probably should be, so maybe it should be 3.5. But anyway, that's how I found it. The next 4-star book was a reread, and that was Baba Yaga's Assistant by Emily Carroll. This is a graphic novel about a girl who goes to work for Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga needs an assistant and she goes to work for her, and she is like the scary woman in the forest that everyone tells stories about and all the kids are scared of. This is just a really wonderful story. I think I didn't enjoy it as much the first time that I read it. I read Through the Woods by Emily Carroll and quickly read Baba Yaga's Assistant afterwards, and it didn't compare because yeah, Through the Woods is better to me. But this time I kind of knew the story and I didn't expect as much, and so I enjoyed it a lot more. I think I didn't have as high expectations. So that was really, really good and I enjoyed that one. And then another graphic novel was one that I got for my birthday while I was home and read while I was home, and it was just so fun. It's called Woman World and it's by, I'm gonna have to look, Aminder Dhaliwal. It is by. So it's set in like a dystopian world where all the men just died out. There was like a gene that was deficient in women that meant they could only have female children, and it started spreading and then they couldn't have men anymore. And it's just hilarious because there's just so many instances of people asking what men were like. There's this little girl who won't stop asking her grandma different things, and like one of the things is that she keeps asking her if men are like Paul Blart Mall Cop because she found a DVD case, and it's so funny. It's so ridiculously funny, and it's one of those reads where you sit down, you spend an hour, and at the end of the hour you're like, I feel really happy with that. It's just such a happy read. It's fantastic. The drawing's really good. It's really simple in the way that it's drawn. There's not really any colour used. It's all just black lines sort of thing, but it's really wonderful and yeah, really fun read. I definitely would pick up anything else Aminder Dhaliwal writes because I really enjoyed Woman World. It was hilarious. Next we have Overshare by Rosie. So this, obviously I was very, very excited for this for a long time. I've been watching their YouTube channel for a really long time. So I got the book when I was home and read most of it before the events. I went to the Overshare tour and watched the documentary, which was fantastic, really, really interesting. And then there was the Q&A, and then we met them after. They signed the book and like took pictures with us. I will insert the picture here because it's the happiest picture of my life at the moment. But yeah, it was really, really fun. They are such lovely people, and I really like that they make content that means LGBT people are more seen. For me personally, that's the thing that makes me feel better. Like, I love Simon vs. the Homo sapiens agenda so much because it makes me feel like I'm more accepted when I see people like me in the media. And so that's one of the reasons that I've really loved Rose and Rosie's channel so much, and this book just made me feel that even more. So it was really, really great. Like I said, I read most of it before the tour, and then the last bit I got the audiobook and listened to the rest of it at the end of October just because I still wanted to finish it and I'd left the book in England. So yeah, that was really, really enjoyable and fun. Very, very fun. I really, really enjoyed everything about the night. It was fantastic. Oh, I also got a t-shirt. Where's my t-shirt? This t-shirt is the bane of my life. Cute. We got it at the theatre thing that they were showing the documentary on pretty quickly, and then we went upstairs and we were queuing, and we would have been within like the queue of you'll meet them in half an hour basically. But then me and my best friend decided, why don't we go check out the merch bit now? Because we're going to have to wait in the queue anyway. Why not? Went and did that, both bought t-shirts, went back, everyone had left, everyone, and then we joined the queue. So we were the last people in the queue, and that was annoying because it took forever. That was the other thing that was a little bit annoying, but I don't mind because it was really fun. And it's just that me and my best friend are stupid, really. But yes, that was really cool and I really enjoyed myself doing that. And then the last 4-star book that I have the month of October is Two on a Tower. So this is the first Victorian book that I'm mentioning. Two on a Tower by Thomas Hardy. This ended up getting 4 out of 5 stars. And if you heard me mention it at any point during this month, that might seem a little bit weird because the way I was talking about it and the way I was enjoying it, you would think it would be a 5-star. Everything about this book is a 5-star until you get to about 50 pages before the end. And then I was just annoyed a lot, which it bothers me even more because I was enjoying it so much, like so much. I love the characters, I love the writing, I love the way it talks about science and astronomy. I loved just everything. It was just, I just really enjoyed the writing style and the relationship it was looking at and the sort of issues for that relationship. And especially because I'd say this was one of his, there's a word that's prescribed to like books like this, and it's like a lesser work by him, but that's not the description. I can't remember what it's called. Basically, it's not one of his most serious books. There's more like a serious drama going on in something like Tess the D'Urbervilles than in this. This is a quiet kind of story that just focuses on this relationship. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed seeing his writing kind of be able to flourish in sort of a quiet story. I thought it lent really well to his writing style. Everything was going great. I'm going to discuss spoilers a little bit. So yeah, when I put the book down, spoilers over. So the thing that bothered me is obviously she finds out about this money that he was entitled to before he married her, and they aren't properly married because their marriage happened when her husband hadn't died yet. So she convinces him to leave, and after he's left she marries someone else. I get it. I get all of that. I get she has a kid with him. I get it. It was annoying. It upset me a little bit, but I was like, I can see why he's wrote it that way. That's a proper story that would probably happen in real life. So I get it. It's fine. But then it started to aggravate me. So her husband, this bishop, dies at the time that this threshold for Swithin being 25 is met. He's now like, I think he's 6 months off being 25. Oh, that just bothered me so much. Like, I hate coincidences in books where it's like, this isn't a coincidence. That wouldn't happen. Stop trying to make it happen. It just bothered me. Like, he wasn't very old. He was a man who was like seemed quite well and in health and all of that stuff, and it bothered me that he just died out of nowhere so that the story could continue. I hate it when stuff like that happens. So that was the first thing that bothered me. But even at the time of reading it, I remember thinking, right, it's okay, I get it, like, it's a book, it's a drama, of course you would go with it, and yeah, write that, fair enough. So I let it off. But then the actual ending happens, and he goes to that fucking column, she's at the top with her kid, and he says he's gonna marry her. Well, first he says he doesn't love her anymore because she don't look young. So he's like, oh, the bone structure's kind of lessened in her face, and her face has started drooping because she's old now, so I don't really love her anymore. It's kind of broke the connection, which pissed me off. Like, of course she's not going to look pretty. She just like gave up all the happiness she had in her life to marry some other idiot to save her reputation, and then she lived with him for 5 years but assumed that she would live with him for the rest of her life, and that she signed away the happiness in her life for you to go and have your future, and then you come back, you're like, she don't fucking look young anymore, so I don't love her. No. That really, really, really fucking annoyed me. So didn't enjoy that. And then she fucking dies. He's like, I'm gonna marry her anyway, you know, pity marriage. So he decides to marry her, and then when he tells her, she dies. What? No one dies from someone saying, I'm gonna marry you. Like, oh, yeah. I'm really annoyed. I'm more annoyed at this book because I loved it so much. I enjoyed it so much. I'm still giving it 4 stars because everything else was so phenomenal, and I feel like I can't put it any lower than 4 stars for how much I enjoyed most of my reading experience. But honestly, I'm still furious about it because I was enjoying it so much. So I'm going to put this down now and try to calm myself. But that wasn't great. Not happy about that. Okay, next one. Let's just forget about that. So the next thing I read was The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I listened to this on audiobook, and the audiobook was read by Stephen Fry, which was fantastic. Really enjoyed him as a audio narrator. And the book I loved. The last time I tried to read it for Victober, and I got up to the bit where he sees this beautiful girl who's playing Juliet, and he's like, I really like her. And then I left the book in England, came back here and was like, fuck, I left the book in England. I can't read it now. But obviously now I was able to pick it up because I had it on audiobook. So yeah, I picked it back up. I started from the beginning again and read the whole thing, and I loved it so much. I think I mentioned it in my top 10 Victorian novels, but the thing that I really enjoyed was when you start this book, there's this Dorian Gray character who doesn't mesh with the character of Dorian Gray that I see in popular culture. So in popular culture, Dorian Gray, he's almost presented as a Lothario. Like, I've seen him in Penny Dreadful and in The Extraordinary League of Gentlemen. It's not called that, it's something like that. And like other things, and whenever he is discussed, he's always discussed as, yeah, this Lothario, he's drinking all the time and he's seducing everyone and he's so fit and like all of this stuff. And I just find it fascinating to see this character who was unsure of themselves, who wasn't the best person in a room. Like, whenever they talk about Dorian Gray, he's the best person in the room. He's always like just above and beyond everyone else there. And in this book, he wasn't. He was second. His abilities, like, Lord Henry completely overshines him as this, like, character who dominates the room, dominates the conversation, and Dorian Gray's kind of like a little fangirl for him. And I found that fascinating when thinking about the character that I see in popular culture all the time. And the thing that I enjoyed was going through this book and seeing how his character moved and started to become like that character from popular culture. I wouldn't say he goes all the way to being that character, but I could, like, once you get towards the end, you can definitely see where those ties come in and why that character is taken so far. And yeah, I enjoyed it so much. I didn't expect the ending and what happened, and I think it was a fantastic end. Like, some books, I read them like this and I get pissed off by the end, but Dorian Gray didn't do that. It had a really, really great ending and I really enjoyed it. So that was definitely one of the better books that I read in the month of October. That was a 5-star. Did I say that that one was 5-star? That one was 5-star. Then the next thing was a reread, so I'm not really going to mention it that much because I've talked about it before, but I read Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. That's why I ended up reading Baba Yaga's Assistant as well, because, yeah. So obviously it was October when I was home, it was getting colder, everyone started putting on Halloween reading recommendations on YouTube, and I was like, I just want to read something Halloweeny, and I decided to pick up Through the Woods because I've loved it before. This is a series of, I think there's 5 short stories that are illustrated by Emily Carroll as well as written, and they are just phenomenal. It's just, yeah, it's really enjoyable and I like it, and it was really, really fun to pick up again. I definitely would see it as one of those books that I would pick up like every Halloween for the rest of my life probably. So that was really enjoyable and I loved reading that. And finally, with my favourite book of the month. So I was a little bit hesitant because this writer has wrote 2 things that I've read. One that I have thoroughly enjoyed and is one of my favourite books in the medium that it's in, and one of them that I didn't really enjoy. So the book is Running Upon the Wires and the poet is Kate Tempest. So yes, I've read Hold Your Own by Kate Tempest, which I read for a readathon that I did, and oh my god, I had so many feelings to that book. I thought it was phenomenal. And this is the first book that she's brought out that is like that one. So it says in the back, Running Upon the Wires is Kate Tempest's first book of freestanding poetry since the acclaimed Hold Your Own. So they are the only 2 like freestanding poetry collections that she's done. I have read Let Them Meet Chaos and didn't enjoy it that much, but that's more, she talks about it as being an album. So when I picked this up, I was a little bit hesitant in that I was like, what side am I going to land on? Because apparently I have a bit of a mixed bag with her. But this book was like Hold Your Own Part 2. Like, it kept up exactly what I enjoyed in Hold Your Own and just like continued going and was just phenomenal. This is such a beautiful collection. So this kind of follows a relationship. We start at the end of the relationship, the next is the middle, and then we go to the start, and that's how this is kind of structured. Oh, it's amazing. One of the best things for me personally is that Kate Tempest has relationships with women, and so her poetry is obviously about women. So it's like female relationships that she's talking about. It's being a woman who's attracted to women and all of that sort of stuff that comes along with that. And that really resonated with me because as someone who really loves poetry, one of the things I find the most difficult about poetry, whenever there's love poems, whenever there's like desire or all of these things, it's always straight. Poetry is still pretty highbrow in my opinion, and like obviously a lot of the poetry that's come before and like the classic poetry that you can read doesn't feature lesbian relationships because it can't. And then a lot of the poetry now, I think, because it is still kind of highbrow, means that it doesn't focus on stuff outside the norm. I'm not saying it doesn't ever, because I've seen poetry collections based on like race and based on like feminism and being a woman, and that's great, but I haven't seen many that are just a romantic collection about a female-female relationship, and that's what I want to see. So this was great. This was just nice to read as someone who is in a relationship with a woman and who's never ever seen that in poetry before. And I'm someone who does, I wouldn't say I read a hell of a lot of poetry, but I would say I read it quite often, and so it's nice to see myself represented in a way in a poetry collection. I enjoyed that. So they are all the books that I finished in the month of October, and then I have 2 more books that I'm currently reading. So I have North and South, which I'm on page 138 of. I'm quite enjoying this, and so I will just continue reading it until I've finished. And the other one is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, which I picked back up this month. I think I read like 3 or 4 chapters of it in the end, and have definitely been enjoying it a lot more than I was previously, so I'm quite glad I had the break from it. I will continue with it and see how I find it. So they are all the books that I read in the month of October or Victober. If you took part in Victober, comment down below what you read and how you found it, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!